Hey you guys, welcome back for chapter 4 of Wings of Fire, the Dragonet Prophecy. Thank you to everybody that's been leaving likes on the video. It's been really telling me that you guys want to see more of it, so lots of thanks for that. So here's chapter 4. Clay had really believed the legends about Nightwings, secretive dragons who could read minds, a hidden kingdom that no one could find, a mysterious queen, the power to see the future. The way they always appeared from the darkness to deliver prophecies that shaped the world. It all sounded like fairy tales, but about as likely as a world ruled by scavengers instead of dragons. Besides, Clay knew Starflight, and Starflight was many things. Annoying, long-winded, smart, too serious, but he had no magical powers, and he was never, ever scary. But the next evening, when a dragon black as the bottomless pit, as black as a bottomless pit, loomed out of the shadows of the entrance tunnel, Clay felt all the rumors about the Nightwings come crashing into his head like a collapsing rock wall. Marauser was even bigger than Kestrel, and 5 times more terrifying. He spread his jagged bat-like wings and peered down at the dragonets lined up in front of him. He had silver scales like stars on the underside of his wings, like Starflight did, but on him they seemed to glitter from a distance and cast a cold glow. He looked like he could easily rip off each of their heads in one bite. He also looked like he already hated the 5 dragonets, which wasn't what Clay had expected at all. Were they such a disappointment already? Maybe Marauser was reading their minds and knew how confused they were about the prophecy. Or maybe he was seeing the future and his visions were all of failure. Failure, failure. Clay could feel Sunny trembling at his side. He felt the same way, petrified in place, as if his scales were being slowly peeled off, one by one, while the giant Nightwing inspected them. On his other side, Starflight was more still than Clay had ever seen him. Starflight always froze when he was frightened. It was as if he hoped that by not moving, he'd disappear from view and the danger would pass right by. Clay couldn't see Glory, but he knew when Marauser saw her. The huge black dragon stared down at the Rainwing Dragonet for a small eternity. His snout twitched with ripples of disgust. A forked black tongue slipped out over his teeth. Clay wished his own wings were as vast as the cavern itself, so he could hide his friends from Marauser. He wished his talons were as huge as the stalagmites and as sharp as the rock shards. He wished he were big enough to be brave, and brave enough to be big. He never wanted anything so much as he wanted to protect his friends from this tall, hissing, scornful, immensely dangerous dragon. He really, really hoped that Marauser wasn't reading his mind right now. Think about cows, think about cows, think about delicious, fat cows. Marauser pivoted his head slowly to glare down at Kestrel. He lifted one claw and pointed at Glory. "What is that?" he said, his voice loaded with enough venom to kill 20 dragons in mid-flight. Starflight took a step back, and Clay saw Glory. She was sitting in the hunches with her tail curled over her talons. Trails of violet and gold chased each other through her scales. Only the shades of flame around her feathery ears hinted that she was upset. She stared calmly back at Marauser. "There was an accident," Kestrel said. "We'd lost the Skywing egg, so we had to get another one somewhere." "From the Rainwings?" Marauser interrupted scathingly. It was his idea, Kestrel snarled, whipping her tail towards Webs. He brought her egg here. At least we have 5 dragonets. That's what matters. Rouser peered down his long snout at Glory. His eyes shifted towards Sunny, who let out a tiny squeak and sank a little lower towards the ground. More like 4.5. Are you supposed to be the sandwing? Don't you eat? What's wrong with you? There was a long, horrible pause while Sunny tried to squeak out an answer. She does, Tsunami blurted. She eats fine, as much as anyone. Not her fault she's small. Starflight chimed in, to Clay's surprise. She's a good fighter, Clay said. So is Glory. Stop talking now, Marauder said. And silence dropped over them. His sharp, menacing gaze landed on Clay. Think about cows, think about cows, think about cows. The tall Nightwing turned to the 3 guardians. Something has gone very wrong here. Yes, Tsunami burst in again. It has, and I can tell you what. We're treated like prisoners. We've never been outside these caves, not once. All we know about this world we're supposed to save is that what we've learned in scrolls. We're supposed to be the most important dragonets in the world, but these 3 treat us like blind salamanders. Clay couldn't believe it. Wasn't she scared of Mrouser too? Tsunami, hold her tongue, Dune snapped. I will not. Please get us out of here, she said to Mrouser. Take us away with you. Please don't, Clay thought. Think about cows. Think about cows. Now that he'd seen the Nightwing, he'd rather stay trapped here. Ungrateful lizard, Kestrel growled. Without warning, Mrouser lunged at Tsunami. His teeth flashed like bright white lightning, darting towards her neck. It really is like the night sky falling on you, Clay thought, and then he discovered he was moving too. He flung himself on the Nightwing's huge, rigid back before he could stop to think about what he was doing. His claws sank into the small gaps between the shifting black scales, scrabbling for a hold. His tail thrashed as he tried to balance. Below him he saw Tsunami rolling away and spinning to fight back. Her blue talons slashed at Mrouser's nose and underbelly. Clay tried frantically, goodness, I can't talk today, to remember his battle training. He flattened himself along the big dragon's back, snaked his neck forward, and bit down as hard as he could. Ow! His jaw exploded with pain, and he reared back on the black on black scales. It was impossible to find a weak spot. Rouser jumped away from Tsunami, shook his whole body violently. Clay lost his grip and went flying through the air. He landed with a jarring thud, sliding halfway into the river. As he staggered to his feet, he saw Tsunami and Mrouser facing each other in battle positions. Mrouser made a grinding noise deep in his throat. He stepped back and swung his tail around into view. Clinging to Mrouser's tail, her teeth firmly planted in the vulnerable spot near the end, was Sunny. Clay wished he'd remembered about that spot, which every dragon had, no matter which tribe they were from. Ha! Mrouser rumbled. That's a surprise. He pried Sunny loose with his front talons, as if she were just a tiny blood-sucking insect. That one will do, Mrouser said, pointing at Tsunami. None of the big dragons had moved at all as he attacked their charges. Neither had Glory, and neither had Starflight. Clay staggered up beside his Nightwing friend, who was doing an excellent imitation of a stalagmite. Starflight lowered his head and avoided Clay's eyes. And that one will do. Rouser nodded at Clay. Kestrel snorted. The Nightwing approved of him? Clay was confused. It wasn't as if Clay's attack had done any good. Even when he was Clay, even when Clay was defending his friend, apparently he couldn't get angry enough to drag out his inner monster. Couldn't Marauser hear everything thinking about how Clay was going to let them all down? This one, Marauser studied Sunny, from her harmless tail to her weirdly golden scales and moss green eyes. We'll have to see. We followed the prophecy, Dune insisted. She wasn't in a clutch of eggs. I found her egg alone, buried in the desert, just like the prophecy said. The Guardians never talked about where they got the Dragonet's egg. Sunny stared at Dune hopefully, but he fell silent under Marauser's dark eyes. As for you, Marauser said to Starflight, I assume you used your Nightwing powers to figure out that I was not going to harm the Sea Wing. Perhaps you had even had a vision of my visit today. No doubt you already know that I'm going to take you into the next cavern for a private conversation. Clay shuddered. A private conversation with Marauser sounded as much fun as having his ears roasted. He did not envy Starflight as the two Nightwings slithered towards the study room. Marauser paused in the archway and looked back at the Guardians. We'll talk about her later. He didn't look at Glory, but everyone else did. She flicked her ears and lifted her chin a little higher as Marauser's footsteps faded away down the tunnel. What does that mean? Clay worried. What was there to talk about? Stupid Sea Wing, Kestrel shot across the cave and struck Tsunami's snout. Complaining to the first strange dragon you see. Trying to make us look bad. Whining about your life after all we've given up for you. If you hate this too, why don't you just let us go? This is for your safety, Webbs interjected. His voice was gentler than Kestrel's, but Clay could tell he was angry from the way his long blue-green tail lashed on the floor. That's what all of this is for. The Talons of Peace need you to survive long enough to fulfill the prophecy. You have no idea how many dragons would love to get their claws on you five. Or what they'd do to you if they did, Dune growled. Our job is to keep you alive. Or else I'd have strangled you myself a long time ago. Great. Well, it's been a terrific life. Thanks very much. Clay made the hissing fires coming noise. Clay grabbed Tsunami's tail and tugged her back towards the river. We are grateful, Sunny said, jumping in front of Kestrel. She stood on her back legs, not even half the red dragon's size. Her golden ears twitched. We would much rather be alive than not alive. We're glad you keep us that way. We really are. Come on, Webb said. He prodded Kestrel and Dune towards their cave. We need to talk. Now he has something to say. Kestrel grumbled as the three of them clambered over the broken stalagmites. Tsunami threw herself into the river and sank to the bottom of the stream of furious bubbles, where she curled up with her talons over her head. It got very quiet in the cave. Sunny and Clay exchanged glances, then looked over at Glory. The Rainwing was sitting in the same spot, her tail still neatly curled around her feet. She yawned. Clay wished he could even ever be that calm. It was as if nothing bothered her at all. Are you all right? Clay asked. He came around and sat in front of her, studying her face. Sunny sidled up beside Glory, brushing her violet wings with her own smaller golden ones. Of course, Glory said. I mean, we know that what was going to happen. It's not like the Minders have been talking about how awesome I am the whole time. But you are, Clay said. Glory tilted her head at him. Awesome, he insisted. They see a Rainwing? She said with a shrug. I don't care. It's their own fault for bringing me here. Why didn't you fight Marauser when we did? Sunny said. Then maybe he'd know how brave and fierce you are, too. Why bother? Glory said. It was obviously a test, and I'd already failed. A splotch of sky blue scales on her black pulsed, and then the color began to spread across her other scales, eating up the purple and gold. Well, we don't care about what the prophecy says, or what Marauser thinks, Clay said stoutly. You're our fifth Dragonet. We don't want anyone else. Glory gave him a rueful look. That's very sweet. She yawned again. I'm gonna go take a nap. Now? Sunny said, alarmed. Is that a good idea? Glory fell asleep every day, usually after lunch, for a couple of hours. But Clay had expected her to stay awake while Marauser was around. He knew he wouldn't want the big dark dragon catch him sleeping. He glanced at the tunnel to the study room, wondering uneasily how far the Nightling's telepathy could reach and whether he could read Clay's mind through the rock. I'm tired. They all think I'm lazy anyway. Nothing I can do to change that. Clay knew Glory wasn't lazy. She worked harder than everyone at battle training and learning the Dragon War's history. Even though none of the big dragons ever noticed, she just had to nap in the middle of the day, probably for some rain-wing reason. Although it didn't seem to help, Glory was just as prickly and tired after napping as she was before. Wake me if anything exciting happens, Glory said, but make sure it's actually exciting, not Sunny exciting. She gave Sunny a friendly nudge with her snout, and then the sandwing squeaked in protest. I don't think everything is exciting. Sunny flapped her wings. But you guys don't think enough things are exciting. Think of it this way. Time to leave the caves and fulfill prophecy? Exciting. You caught another weird-looking white crab in the river? Not exciting. Got it? She poked Sunny again, uncurled her tail, now fully blue, slipped inside her sleeping cave. Sunny blinked at Clay. I know, he said, but that last crab was really weird looking. It was, wasn't it? I wouldn't have minded if you'd woken me up to see it, Clay added kindly. Well, good, I know. That's why you got to eat half of it instead of anyone else. She headed for her favorite stalagmite and started to climb it, hooking her claws in the holes that dotted the bulbous shape. Clay clambered up the rocks beside her. Hey, Sunny, what would you think about running away? You mean leaving the caves? Without our guardians? Oh no, we couldn't. We have to do what the prophecy says. Do we? He asked. I mean, we do, he said quickly as she nearly lost her grip on the stalagmite in surprise. But what if the talents don't understand the prophecy any better than we do? Maybe we need to get out and stop the war our own way. Sunny settled on top of the stalagmite and coiled her tail around it, balancing on her back legs. She reached up towards the stalactites that were poking sharply down from the top of the caves. I don't think that's a good idea, Clay. If we just follow the prophecy, everything will be all right. Her claws batted at the tip of the lowest stalactite, but she was still too small to reach it. She sat back down with a frustrated sigh. Clay glanced at the soft blue glow coming from Glory's cave. Follow the prophecy. But he couldn't stop thinking the real prophecy would have concluded. Glory, what if the prophecy was wrong? And that is chapter 4. I will be back tomorrow for chapter 5. Hope you guys liked it. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and if you want to see more. Don't forget to subscribe and push the notifications button if you want to know when my videos come out. But until then, bye.